Oh.
Here, and we're live.
And how's everybody doing today? Good, I hope.
Yes, it's Mike Lucy here, one half of the Mike and Bill Show.
And this is Bill Hartman, and I'm the other half.
I'm the left half.
No, I'm the right half.
Oh.
There we go.
Hold on, we have audio. All right, feedback. All right, I have an important question for everyone watching, either now or later. If we offered you $160 or more per hour, would you be interested? Well, truth be told, if you watch this show for the next hour, we're going to be talking about Michigan insurance, specifically with respect to no fault, and how if we collectively come together and unite as citizens, we can all help each other and put more money in our pocket. So,
I like to keep money in my pocket.
we all do.
I got enough people trying to suck it out.
Yes. So the introduction is auto insurance premiums in Michigan are 136% higher than national average. We are by far the most expensive state in the nation.
Wow.
When it comes to auto insurance.
Okay.
So upon a little bit of research, there's 3 reasons for this. And before I mention these 3 reasons, I'd also like to mention that at 8:30, trucker Randy Bishop, a radio celebrity in upstate Michigan, is going to be joining us, and he is going to be putting some meat on these bones.
Right.
The bones I'm talking about are the 3 reasons. Randy's an ex-insider in the insurance industry, and he knows a lot about what's going on.
Yeah.
And you know Randy, right?
Yeah, I've known Randy for quite a while.
Yes. So when 8:30 rolls around, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out and let you interview Mr. Bishop.
We'll see how that goes. All right, let's move along. What do we have?
We have another viewer here. It's Arlene. Welcome, Arlene. All right. So the 3 reasons why Michigan insurance is high. I have to open the document. Number 1, no fault. Randy Bishop is going to fill us in, trucker Randy is going to fill us into exactly what this means. But I will just say for now that of the 10 highest premium paying citizens per state, the top 10 are all no fault states.
Yeah.
So take it for what you want. I'm a common sense kind of guy. To me, that sounds like if you're a no fault state, you're screwing your citizens. Next reason. Number 2, Michigan is the only state with unlimited lifetime coverage for catastrophic injuries. Once again, trucker Randy's going to fill us in, put some meat on those bones, tell us all about what goes on behind the how and why it's important to us. And incidentally, hint, this is where the $160 back in your pocket, maybe even $170, comes into play.
Okay.
And lastly, the number 3 reason is the very high number of people driving without car insurance. And what this is a as the article I read today, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in that the more expensive insurance the more it incentivizes people to drive without insurance.
That's right.
And then the cyclical part of this is it drives everyone's insurance up. Okay.
So, Mike, I just wanted to point out, and I had heard that they weren't doing this in Michigan anymore, and maybe Randy will cover this more when he's talking, is that there's certain insurance companies in the state where you can buy a 7-day policy. I don't know if you've seen it. I saw a lot of that in California when I was out there. But 7-day policy is long enough for you to get your tabs, get your stuff done, and then it expires. So it's super cheap, and that's how people are getting around the law. And I heard that those companies were that they're not issuing those any longer, but I don't think that's true.
Why don't you make a note and ask Trucker Randy when he joins us?
I will do that. Okay.
Be interested. I'll tell you what we do here is when on our throwaway cars, when we travel to Florida, ultimately we add full coverage for the duration of our trip, and then we get back, we just reduce it back to POPD. It gives us a little bit of peace of mind if we're out on the road and something happens.
Sure.
All right. Next on the agenda is, okay, this is very important. This is a nonpartisan issue. So the most important part about this conversation is we can only accomplish what we want to accomplish if we unite and do this together, independent of beliefs, independent of partisanship. The fact of the matter is, it's the insurance lobby and the politicians versus is what it is. And you can spin it whatever way you want. That's the reality. It's the people with the money. And the only way to fight this is for 9.956 million people to come together in a unified voice, share our stories collectively, and advocate action in Lansing. So once again, it's a nonpartisan issue. We have ground rules tonight. The ground rules are we will not be talking about politics. If you do bring up politics, we're going to put the smack down on you. Also known as the mute button. So anyways, so the next talking point is what I call fox in a hen house. And that's an analogy of what's going on with Michigan auto insurance through the lens of Mike Lucy, through the eyes of Mike Lucy. So what I mean by fox in a hen house is if you take a fox and you put it in a hen house, that fox is going to do two things. The first thing it's going to do, it's going to consume. It's going to eat all the hens and the chickens.
Right.
And the second thing it's going to do is it's going to fight for its life to stay in the hen house. Go ahead, walk in that hen house. Try to boot that fox out of there. What do you think is going to happen?
It's going to come after you.
Oh, yeah. So taking that analogy and applying it to what auto insurance is in Michigan, the state of auto insurance in Michigan, it's a fox in a hen house. And the fox is the politicians. And I don't care what they're saying, because they've been saying it for a long time. We're going to do something. We're going to do something. They're going to do two things. And their hen, what they're out there to consume, what their hens are, or their chickens are, is a big bundle of cash. And as I understand it, it could be as little as 20 billion, and it could be as much as 60 billion. Randy's going to fill us in on that later. But that's what they're out there to consume. That's their job: consume, consume, consume. So the second part of the analogy is, what do you think happens when you try to take this $20 billion worth of capital away from them? What do you think happens?
They're going to scream.
Correct. So it's a fox in a hen house. And we can't go into this hen house one by one.
Right.
We go in there as a divided people, Democrats and Republicans. We got to go in there united and say, look, you are screwing over the citizens of Michigan. So I like that.
Well, yeah.
I put that together in the last hour.
What they're going to do is they'll get us fighting amongst ourselves and then just keep going on as business as usual.
Okay, the next point is, what makes what we're doing tonight, this conversation, any different than what's happened over the last 20 years? And the answer is, it's simple. It's media, live streaming, live video, media, social media, using it to unify people in one common cause where we can collect and aggregate this conversation in one place and then hand it over to the people in Washington and say, look, 9.956 million people are pissed off. And through technology, we can unify that voice, and we can have a more powerful voice than ever in the history of mankind. So at the end of that conversation are two things. We want to, the first thing is collusion. We want to end the collusion between the insurance lobby and the politicians. And number two, we want to hold your local representatives accountable. What we mean by accountable is don't talk the talk like we've been doing for the last 20 years. We're going to reform, we're going to reform, we're going to reform, even repeal. We're going to reform and repeal. We're going to repeal. Nothing's happened. Nothing. The second thing, or the last talking point I had before we get into our stories, and we've had quite a few stories shared with us today, is as we talked about earlier, the people that drive without insurance,
Mm-hmm.
Randy's going to tell us all about that later. He calls it riding dirty. This, when it comes to disenfranchised people, and let's look at Detroit, as you know, I think we're all in agreement. There are a lot of disenfranchised people in Detroit. The system is set up to take advantage of the disenfranchised. So by dragging on this conversation, talking about taking action, but not yet taking any action, you're just simply disenfranchising the disenfranchised even more. So if we as a community, we as a state, we as citizens of the great state of Michigan really, really care about our disenfranchised, this is one step that we can take to show them that we care.
Mm-hmm.
Agree?
Yeah, I would totally agree.
I'm adamant about that. I'm very adamant. Is that helping people is at the foremost of this conversation, the forefront of this conversation.
Right.
All right, so we're ready. What we're going to do now is share some stories with you. We've been fortunate enough to have people share stories with us, give us permission to go on the air and talk about them. So we have 4 of them we've identified, and I think I'm first. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, sir. You're first, and while you're talking and sharing, I will be sharing.
Okay, and then likewise when you step up.
Right.
And I got to find, I have mine queued up, but I have to find the page. And here we go. Let's see, there we go. That's not it. Sorry, silence kills a lot. So the best you can do is multitask, is click and talk at the same time.
Right.
No.
So this is why Bill printed his out and has them sitting in front of him.
I'm going to blame shift here.
Do you want me to go ahead and you'll just fill in?
No, because I want to end with Mr. Dwyer.
Okay.
Strategically pick Mr. Dwyer last. All right, so the first one I have is from a young lady I went to high school with, who I follow closely on Facebook. And she gave me permission to share her story and her name. And her name is Debbie Mauer.
Okay.
And I'm going to read verbatim what she wrote about 1 month ago, on March 5th of this year. Here we go. Sorry, rant warning, smiley face. So Mark, her husband, and I are paying just over $13,000 a year. Capital letters, $13,000 a year for auto insurance. Every time we get, that quarterly bill in the mail, I want to vomit.
Mm-hmm.
In our 30 years of driving and paying ridiculous amounts, we have made a total of 1 claim. Someone hit Mark on his Harley about 12 years ago and did $9,000 worth of damage. So my latest outrage stems from the fact that the insurance company has been threatening that either Mark or I needs to be added onto Adam's title,
Mm-hmm.
or they can no longer cover his vehicle. Mark and I thought that we were paying our insurance to take care of the liability of Adam's driving. Isn't that what we're all paying the insurance company big money for? Question mark. Exclamation point. The statement in the mail for this quarter, just threatened, no longer has Adam Saab on it. So the insurance company threatened them and then followed through on it. But now that they have Adam listed as occasional driver on Mark's car, and our insurance went up to $12,000 a year. I think that was meant to say $12,000 a month. Anyways, exclamation point.
Mm-hmm.
We are covering 4 vehicles and a motorcycle instead of 5, and our insurance went up. So they have 1 less car on the policy, but yet their insurance still went up. The same thing happened a few years ago when Adam's status was no longer drivable and was in the scrapyard. I think she meant car. We continue to keep it on our policy for 2 years because if we removed it, our insurance was going to go up $800 a year, an additional $800 a year. How is this even possible? And have dropped all of our vehicles down to PLPD except the Harley. We have a 2013 Focus, a 2012 Sienna, a 2007 Fusion, a 2006 Impala, and a 2012 Harley Road King. And they did have a 2006 Saab. I know you're thinking we're probably driving Porsches and Ferraris and Mercedes and Lamborghinis for those prices, but no. And yes, I have called around multiple times to multiple insurance companies. Now, mind you, I want to add into this that Debbie and her husband and their family are extremely responsible professional people. We're not talking about riffraff here. We're talking about responsible people that do well for themselves and their family being taken advantage of. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'd like to say thank you to Debbie for allowing us to share that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, what I have here is, and this is from Arlene Pearson, and she's talking about her daughter and son-in-law. And it says here, my daughter and son-in-law have moved to Ohio from their work. Both have said, even if work opportunities permitted, they didn't plan to return to Michigan due to Michigan's very costly auto insurance policies compared to Ohio's. Such costly insurance fees work against their objectives to try to save money for their future. We need to find sound and affordable auto insurance rates in Michigan. And I totally concur with that. And personally, I'd like to see us in some way open up the ability to buy insurance across state lines. And I don't know what that would require.
That's not possible. I mean, my understanding of the law is that's just not possible.
Well, it's the states control insurance. So I guess if you had an agreement with another state, you could do it. I don't know. I can't say. I'm not an expert in that area. Mike, why don't you go with number 3?
All right, number 3. You know what? It's going to take me a second to find it. So let's multitask.
Okay.
You know, the conversation is that's the third person today that had mentioned to me that they moved outside of the state.
Yeah.
So the lesson here is that if you're someone in Lansing, if you're a governor, Mr. Snyder, and you hear these stories of people leaving Michigan for the sole reason of auto insurance, that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yes. All right. So the next story comes from yet another person I went to high school with. She did not give me explicit permission to say her name, so I will not mention her by name, but I will read the story. Here we go. Facebook friends, has anyone had or know of an auto insurance company forcing you to add your child to a policy who does not have a driver's license or permit? My no-fault policy is now $420 a month for no fault. One car, no fault.
Mm-hmm.
So must prove that my other 2 kids and probably my ex-husband don't live with me. So it's one car, $420 a month. I'm sorry to laugh, but this story is enough to make you want to, once again, vomit. This is incredible. It's a single mother with a child, one car, $420 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And once again, this is another, it's not riffraff, this is a professional. Living far away from Detroit, mind you. So far away from the high-risk area. All right, Bill, you're up next.
Oh, sure. We've got Ron Dwyer. He's an insurance agent, but he had something to say about this. And then Ron's, I've known him also for quite a few years, so he would be a good person to get on sometime. He says, as an agent, some of the costs do include frivolous liability lawsuits, costs of parts and labor, covering these uninsured or underinsured medical costs, and auto theft. I do agree that we are way past the point of the MCCA charges. Let's see, there was so much money available in the account of $18 billion a year ago. 18 billion, that's what he's got. There's no decimal point there.
Right, 18.
Yeah, that one of the options to cover the roads was to use the interest from the fund and pay for the repairs of roads rather than gas taxes. That idea came from State Representative Peter Lucido. Insurance companies do not have control over the MCAA, but are the source to its blame. Also, I attended an insurance seminar recently in the insurance company. I was only making a 3% profit after several years of being in the red. Tort reform, health reform, and the elimination of unlimited benefits is needed to start reducing the costs of insurance. One way to save on your auto and home is to package them together And in most cases, putting the house and the auto with one company does give you a multi-plan policy discount. Look at the total premium savings, not just that premium on one policy. Also, put all autos on one policy, unless a teenager has sometimes a separate policy with a liability only, and he's got PLPD for the teen, is the better way to go with a late model car. Even if you are not related, many companies today allow unmarried and unrelated household members to be on one policy. This gives you the multi-car discount. And I can agree with that. When my kids were young, we had the multi-car discount, and it did make a big difference. Right. You know, so Ron points out quite a few things in here, such as tort reform. You know, that's one thing. Putting a limit on payments. Right now, like Mike said, it's unlimited. And I have heard some people say that they would like to see a $2 million cap put on that.
On the tort?
On the health insurance, on the health portion. I don't know about that, but this is just the ramblings I've heard.
Yeah, I understand in the auto insurance world, there's a little bit of overlap with health insurance. We're not here to talk about that overlap.
Right.
Because that opens up a whole new can of worms, and that brings out the worst in people when we start talking about policy. What we're talking about is just straight auto insurance where everyone has a stake in it, and we could be unified in saying we're getting screwed as Michigan.
Right. Right.
So what's your just general response to what Mr. Dwyer had to say?
Well, he's pointing out, you know, about the MCAA and the changes that have come about in it. Right. The state mandates that these things happen. The insurance companies have no control over the MCAA, but they are the beneficiaries of monies that are contained in there.
Okay, that and you hit upon what my reaction was. So I'm going to start. I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to be honest about how I feel about this and what I read. No offense, Mr. Dwyer. And I do understand, before I say anything, is that the agents and the brokers of the world, the agents and the brokers of Michigan, are simply the messenger. They're,
right.
They're the worker bee, and they just play the rules that are laid out in front of them. So the first thing, as I read this, that comes to mind is the 3% profit. It's 3% profit of house money is what it is. And what I mean by house money is the state is mandating additional cost to the consumer, which puts more money in the pockets of the insurance companies, the insurance industry, and hence the people in Lansing. Mm-hmm. It's house money because they're just taking more money from us. So 3% of a lot is a lot. So when I hear the argument from people in the insurance industry that they make low margins and low commissions, I understand and appreciate that. And if you're in Arizona and you tell me that, I have a lot more respect. I have more respect for that argument than someone in Michigan, because the total pie itself in Michigan is a lot greater than it is in Arizona. And this comes from someone that's lived in 5 states in the last 15 years. Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, 6, including Michigan. Florida, Arizona, Michigan. It's not even close. My insurance went up between 4 and 5 times when I moved from Phoenix to here. The second thing that I think of as I read this is, and I've had many conversations with people in the insurance world. He cited or mentioned that he went to an insurance seminar. I call it propaganda. So if you're in the insurance industry and you make a living by the rules that your chain of command bestows upon you, of course they're going to spin the story. Mm-hmm. You understand it and favorably represent that story to the public. And that's what Mr. Dwyer's done. He's done a great job of writing a story and spinning it so that it reads as if it's Lansing's and only Lansing's fault, when indeed there's a powerful insurance lobby behind the scenes subsidizing this.
I must say also that insurance lobby makes a lot of donations to a lot of political people. I know we didn't want to talk about politics, but that's all I'm going to talk about.
No, that's fine. And you're absolutely right. They do. But you know what? They don't pick and choose. They give money to everybody. They don't.
Yes, that's true.
And this isn't political, but one of what this is an observation by me. I think they use the divide and conquer tactic when it comes to auto insurance. If you could drive a wedge between people and throw up a smoke screen and have them talking about all these other issues and bury the no fault, the MCCA, all of these problems under the smoke, behind the smoke screen, what you've done is you've created an environment to continue that, to perpetually continue this craziness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my spin.
All right.
All right, it's time for Trucker Randy.
Yes, let's bring Trucker Randy in.
I'm excited.
And I want to give a shout out to Carlos Phoenix and Robert Hicks, who are both on the wire.
And we have Mr. Randy. I have to unmute him, and then for some reason, I always have to ask to start video. Here he comes. Red carpet. Roll it out. Roll.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We're waiting for the video to come through.
All right, here we go. We'll get
there we are. You're on.
Hey guys, I appreciate Mike and Bill. I appreciate you guys having me on your show tonight.
This is fun. You know what? You're a celebrity, and I'm honored. It's an honor and a privilege to be on the same screen as you.
Well, we got together on Facebook earlier to talk about this, and just to inform everybody, back in 2008, after I got off the road and came back to Traverse City, I went to work for Farmers Insurance in Traverse City. I was managing Mark Hudson's office there in Traverse City, 2008, 2009, and basically got to know very well the practice of no-fault auto insurance in the state of Michigan, which is actually, you guys have already talked about it this evening. It is the #1 problem. The top 10 states that have the most expensive are all no-fault. This started back in 1978 by the legislators. And we're not going to talk about politics specifically with regards to parties, but you have to follow the money back in 1978, both to Democrats, Republicans, Independents. And what happened was they were basically bought by the insurance lobbying groups to introduce no fault into Michigan. We had previously, like all the other states you mentioned, Mike, that you've lived in, Arizona, other states like that that have cheaper auto insurance. Well, when they went to no fault, they also created this private corporation. It's not public and it's not privately held, publicly held. Again, the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, which you guys have already talked about. And up until actually this year, they've been absolutely free to handle and conduct their business without any subject to being FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act. You can't get any information about really the management, the investments that they put the money into, and things like that. Michigan, as you've also mentioned, is the only state in the country that has unlimited benefits for anybody that's ever been involved in a catastrophic accident. That is a huge cost of, like you mentioned, right now it's been $160 a year per vehicle. It's going up to $170 in July because they artificially claim that their investments didn't provide such a high return, and therefore they have to increase the fee against this.
Okay.
What I think we need to understand is that this issue is something that Tom Leonard, the current Speaker of the House in Michigan, has an insurance background. He has been involved in insurance in his private life and has made this actually a priority of his to get some kind of reforms done this year. Also, in the Senate side, Arlen Meekhoff, the Senate Majority Leader, is also very interested in getting some reforms done. And the reason they are, guys, is because of shows like this. What you guys are doing tonight, what you're doing in setting up this Facebook page and getting people to share their stories about the horrendous costs that they have, is actually going to inform other people to what I call a call to action. Every single time you go to a town hall meeting, anytime you go to a coffee clutch with your representative, your state representatives, your senators, you need to be asking them this question and making this a top of mind point with them, is you can't afford your car insurance anymore. It's getting out of hand.
Right.
Not only people are driving dirty in Detroit, but I got to tell you, I live up here in northern Michigan. There's a lot of people up here that don't have insurance either. And Bill, you mentioned, you know, the 7-day policies where you can basically buy a policy for a week, go get your tabs, and then you're done.
Right.
Those have been outlawed in Michigan. So
Okay.
it's going to be very difficult. Number two, the Secretary of State now is updating the police cars with information. It used to be done monthly, but now it's being done every 15 days. Is the cop cars are now with their computers on their board, on their dashboards.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to know by just looking up your license plate whether or not you have current car insurance on your vehicle or not. And that is really reduced the amount of dirty driving going on in the state of Michigan. Even though they give tickets for it, well, you can't afford the insurance because you're underemployed or whatever because of the economy, or maybe even unemployed.
Mhm.
You get a ticket for driving dirty. You can't afford the ticket. I mean, this is like what Mike, you were talking about earlier. This is like a occurring theme on the underprivileged, the people who can't afford this the most is the
Right.
ones that are actually damaging the most.
And they just can't get out of that hole.
No, it's a vicious cycle that just
Mhm.
repeats itself over and over again. There's another component to this that you guys may not be aware of, and a little bit of the insider story from when I wasn't a manager of Farmers Insurance.
Mhm.
We have credit scoring in the state of Michigan.
Mhm.
This was introduced by a legislator who took money from an insurance lobbying group to introduce the bill to have insurance companies in Michigan be able to check your credit scores
Mhm.
so that they could score your auto insurance. And this has only been happening honestly within about the last 5 to 6 years that they've gotten more prevalent in the ability to do this.
Mm.
It hurts not only people with poor credit scores, but also people with good credit scores.
Okay.
The one client, Mike, you mentioned, a family is pretty affluent. They have 4 or 5 cars, 4 or 5 family members. They're paying $13,000 a year. I can guarantee you, if you ask her in a private chat what her FICO scores are, I bet you she tells you they're over 800.
Really? Why is this, Randy?
They got good credit.
So they
They
would
can charge
ding
them
'em
more.
Yeah,
They can
okay.
charge them more. They
Okay.
can gouge them.
Right.
Right. And I almost claim that they almost have price fixing in the state of Michigan,
Mhm.
where there's not real competition between the companies, but you yourselves pull out your declaration page, which is all your coverages for your car insurance.
Mhm.
Call 3 different companies. Call AAA, call Farm Bureau or Farmers Insurance, call AAA. Call 3 or 4 different companies
Mhm.
and ask them to give you a quote based on your current deck page that you currently have.
Mhm.
I would be willing to bet that all 3 or 4 of them are probably going to be within 5 to 10% of each other.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's price fixing. There's no competition in this state. Now, you mentioned earlier in the video cam here
Mhm.
that you can buy car insurance across state lines. Health
No.
insurance you can't, but car insurance you can.
Oh, you can.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. If you go to Geico, Progressive,
Yeah.
any of your TV ads that you see, those are all based outside of Michigan.
Okay.
So there is competition, but they all have to follow our state statutes. Number
Mm.
one, no fault. They got to quote that. They got to quote and become a member of the MCCA. They have to
Okay.
absolutely provide full, unlimited coverage. Once you get over $545,000 in medical coverage, that's what they're capped at. The insurance companies don't have to pay any more than $500,000 of your medical bills. And once you go over that point, the MCCA fund kicks in.
Okay.
There's no auditing of that non-public entity. We've got to get FOIA requests being able to be processed on them. We need to know exactly how much is in that account, and we need to have somewhat of a control as to where the investments go.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, do what the other 49 states do. They either cap the benefits at a $2 million or $5 million limit,
Mhm.
or they offer some kind of Medicaid health care through the state. There's ways around it, but you got to get the raw cost of auto insurance down. Another thing that you got to look at is the credit scores. Not only do they gouge the people with good credit, but they also gouge the people with bad credit.
Right.
If you're in the 620 to roughly 680 FICO score range on all 3 bureaus,
Mhm.
you're probably going to not be gouged for being low credit or high credit. you'll be the most competitive in that range.
That's good to know. So we should all aspire to be 620 to 680.
680, just
Yeah.
enough to get a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac mortgage. That's all you want to do. All right.
Double whammy.
Right. Well, now here's another thing.
In the car.
Right. You mentioned one thing earlier, and Ron Dyer mentioned this about having multi-policy discounts. That's where you get your house,
Right.
maybe some life insurance with it as well.
Mhm.
Another thing that you don't realize is a huge discount is called multi-car.
Okay.
One little trick we used in our Traverse City office to try to compete with other insurance carriers in Traverse City is we asked them if they had another vehicle, maybe one they just recently sold. They went, yeah. We said, okay, we're going to put that car in storage because it's got a VIN number. I don't care who owns the car, guys, bear with me.
Mhm.
We don't care who owns the car. We got a VIN number and we got a year and make and model of a vehicle.
Mhm.
You put that in storage with $1,000 deductible and comprehensive. Because you have a second car on your policy, you get what's called multi-car discount. And for single people, you can actually get cheaper car insurance if you put something in storage, even if you don't even own it anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Insurance clip notes of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We got a comment that came in and a couple extra people joined. So number one, if you're watching right now, please do share this story out with your friends. One thing that we're doing is we created a new Facebook group, and what we're inviting Michigan citizens to do is join this group and share your stories about how the insurance companies are charging you excessive rates on your auto insurance. That being said, we have a question/comment from Arlene. I got to find it. Arlene, when time permits, I recommend you reach out to State House Representative Alan Miller, District 59. He spoke at the American for Prosperity meeting this past week in Lansing. If I'm connecting the topic with the correct name/presenter, he is working on reforming our auto insurance system, wanting to make auto policies more affordable for all. Are you aware of Mr. Miller?
Yeah, it's Aaron Miller from the 59th.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and his district is actually down near the Indiana border,
Okay.
where they have very cheap auto insurance just across state lines. But yes, that's the priority of Aaron Miller's. Also, Tom Leonard, the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader. I think this is something that if we continue to work through your guys' efforts on the Facebook page and on these type of webinars, maybe if you do them on a regular basis, people need to talk to their state representatives, their state senators, put pressure on them. We are paying higher fuel taxes. We are paying higher license plate fees to
Right.
fix the roads. We need some relief from those particular tax increases, and no-fault auto insurance reform is an easy no-brainer that can be accomplished this year. Force Governor Snyder to sign it and try to give some relief to the people of the state of Michigan.
Right. Here, beat me up or disagree with me if you want.
Sure.
If you stack up all the issues in the world that people are talking about,
Mhm.
this issue right here is the easiest, in my opinion, one of the easiest ones to combat and take head on with the biggest impact. I mean, what
Right.
else can you do that can put hundreds of dollars in your pocket by simply sharing your story and calling your congressman? Agree, disagree?
No, totally agree. And the other aspect, it's nonpartisan.
Right.
Okay, we've got folks in Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, St. Joseph, all over the state, okay, that are economically hurting in those major urban areas. Also up here in northern Michigan, our income up here is a lot less than it is downstate. And there's a lot of people that are suffering, but yet you need a vehicle to get to work.
Yeah.
If you need a vehicle to get to work, you want to drive legal. You don't want to drive dirty. You want to be insured of some type of insurance to be on the road legally. This is something that could unite the Upper Peninsula, southeastern Michigan, Detroit, and other surrounding areas, absolutely, because it's purely, it's reforming outdated laws from 1978. It's making some common sense judgments as to what should be done with the MCCA account and those claim benefits, and basically changing the law and having Governor Snyder sign it.
Mhm.
And for those people watching, two calls to action right now. If you have a question or have your own story, please do post it in the thread on Facebook, or I'm going to post the link to the Zoom, and you're welcome to come over on Zoom and ask in the chat panel here.
Right.
Or even hop on the screen with us if you have the courage to do so.
Right.
If you've got a camera and a mic, we'll put you on the screen.
Arlene, I see Arlene's in here. If Arlene wants to join, send us a message, and we'll definitely put you on. So, Randy,
Yes, sir.
ready for the next question?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to CCA fund. Tell us all about it. What is it, and what's wrong with it, and what can we do about it?
Well, the biggest problem with it that I look at is the fact that they are not required to answer any questions with regards to financial disclosure as far as their investments and what type of return of investments they're getting on that fund. And the reason for it, guys, is because it's a private, nonprofit, unincorporated association.
So you cannot FOIA that group then?
You cannot get any information out of them. Brian and I do a radio show. We have sent in FOIA requests to them, and they sent us letters back saying very simply, sorry, we don't have to respond to these type of requests.
Okay.
Well, how can anything be held accountable, guys, if you can't even find out, really, how much money totally is in their accounts? Who's managing their investments? What type of rate of return? What type of cap fees are they paying? What type of investment fees are they paying? Who's actually managing and funding the management of this account? And number two, this was done by the state legislature for these insurance companies to be members in this association, regardless of what state they were from. Because the law says that if you get in a catastrophic accident, they capped the insurance company's liabilities to $500,000. Why did they do that? Because the insurance companies paid lobbyists to pay money to the legislators to change the law so that they could say, okay, we have fixed costs at $500,000 per accident, per individual. Now, when they capped it, they then said, okay, anything above that would go into this association fund. This has been going on, guys, in the state of Michigan since 1978.
Right.
Is there 20 billion in there? Is there 40? Is there 60? We've heard rumors that this thing has grown as high as $80 billion, and they don't even know where all the money went to.
Well, you remember when they were going to take the money out and put it towards the roads, because they said that if the roads are in better condition, then there'd be less accidents, and so thus it was part of the roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's number one. We got to get rid of it. It needs to be completely reformed. The fund itself needs to be properly managed. If you want to make it the individual from the state of Michigan who manages the pension investment accounts, somebody like that, these people make $400,000, $500,000 a year, because in the private sector, Bill, Mike, they could be making $1 million a year if they were working for themselves in the private sector.
Right.
But their job is to get a high rate of return. There's guaranteed annuities that certain insurance companies would sell the state that would guarantee a set rate of return in perpetuity. I propose that we take the money that's in that account. It could probably continue to fund catastrophic claims forever. We'd never have to put another dime into it, and the thing could totally fund itself if it was administered and managed properly.
Right.
At what rate do you believe it would be self-sustaining? I mean, I'm just asking for ballpark. Like, put it in, give the money to some really good guru, financial planner, analyst kind of guy.
Yep.
It lives in perpetuity without ever.
Yep. There's certain type of municipal annuities that can be purchased where they guarantee, and these people have been around since before the Depression. Okay, certain companies, I'm not going to plug any particular ones, but there's ones out there, Mike, Bill, these guys are paying anywhere from 8 to 12% guaranteed return on investment.
Right.
That can be done all day long. And then you don't have any more money going into the fund. Number two, stop giving your Social Security numbers to your insurance companies. If they did not have your social security number, they could not run your credit check on your 3 bureaus. They couldn't determine your FICO scores. We need to push our legislators to get them to stop scoring our insurance on automobiles based on how good or bad our credit scores are.
Mm-hmm. And Randy, is for clarification, is that a requirement right now?
They did amend the law that allowed the insurance companies to ask for social security numbers and to do credit checks on people. And that's what has basically driven, in my opinion, in the last 5 to 6 years, has caused car insurance to go up so much in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
That's the biggest factor?
I do believe it is one of the biggest. But the third biggest problem we have is like what you guys referred to, this vicious cycle. The more people that are driving without car insurance, when they get into accidents, it goes into the uninsured motorist fund.
Right.
And then there's another subcomponent that has recently become another subcategory called underinsured.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you aren't insured. It's just what insurance you have, it wasn't high enough for the liability. Let's say you run into a traffic light pole or a utility pole, and the pole comes crashing down and you block out, a 10-mile radius of the electric grid goes down. There's liability factors that get involved in these car accidents. You're underinsured. Nobody has enough insurance in that kind of scenario.
Right.
So the underinsured fund kicks in, and that is out of control. This all needs to be reformed, and we need to get a cheap, affordable, what I call the working guy's insurance policy. We should have a basic PLPD if you're driving an older vehicle that doesn't require collision on your coverage on your car. A basic PLD policy that's like $20 a month, $40 a month, something that's affordable, where you get people into a pool with shared by all the insurance companies. You want to sell insurance in Michigan, you're all going to pick up some of these people and you're going to provide coverage. If you get 100 companies to do it, each one of them has to cover 1% of the poor working guy's type of PLPD policy. Share the expense across the board. Don't let it be driven by credit scoring or anything like that. Let people just have basic coverages so we're all driving legal, because when they don't have insurance, guess who ends up covering the cost of those accidents? It's all of us who have insurance.
Right.
Yeah, goes back to the people.
Yeah. And this is such a commonsensical issue that if these legislators were aware of this, and let's be blunt, guys, next year is an election year for every single politician in Lansing.
Right.
You're talking governor, you're talking secretary of state, attorney general, all the guys in the House and ladies in the House and Senate. They're all up for re-election next year. Make this a campaign issue that says, unless you are willing to support auto insurance, no-fault auto insurance reform, I'm not going to vote for you. I'll vote for your opponent.
Right. Independent party. Independent.
Anybody.
Anybody, yeah.
Well, here's the point, Mike. If you go to a politician and say, listen, I'm at a public event right here. This is a candidate forum or a debate. Where do you stand on this issue? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not going to tell me that you're willing to support auto reforms in the state of Michigan, I will vote for your opponent. This makes it a campaign issue, and then this focuses the attention. This is what turns items like this into an agenda item for both the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. We have to make this a campaign issue for 2018.
Right.
And not just get swept under the rug like it has been in the past.
There's never been a concentrated effort like what you guys are trying to start here tonight. There's no awareness on this issue that people have coalesced, united to share their stories and to become aware of the situation, to turn it into a campaign issue, because nobody has ever taken I mean, I applaud you guys for doing this. This is something that should have been done years ago, and because maybe of technology, you guys are finally doing it.
It's technology. I mean, now the technology has evolved where you can do something. I mean, what were you going to do? A direct mail?
Right.
10 years ago?
It'd be millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
You know, and if you look at radio advertising or TV advertising, you know, I mean, regardless of who you like for president, social media played a big role in our presidential election in 2016.
It was huge.
It was huge on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be even bigger, guys, going into 2018.
Bigger. Mitch Albom wrote about that from the Detroit Free Press. He said, "You thought it was a big part of this election. You just wait for 4 years.
Yep.
It's going to blow your mind."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Go to the governor candidates. We already have announced Gretchen Whitmer for the Democrat. There's Republicans that'll be coming out very soon. Make this an issue. When you go to their events, ask them in front of the audience, where do you stand on the state of Michigan lowering car insurance by reforming it? See where they stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, the more they hear people like us talking about it, it'll become an issue. We'll get this done.
I have a question for you about what Mr. Dwyer wrote in.
Uh-huh.
And my preference would be, if we're going to do these in a series where we have different shows, let's say every Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer to keep politicians and insurance people out of the conversation at the beginning. And one of the reasons I say that is, as I was reading through Mr. Dwyer's explanation,
Mm-hmm.
if you had lived in the 6 states that I lived in and you came here and read that, the first thought that crossed my mind is this is an excuse, because I have lived in 5 other states where we don't have this problem.
Right.
I don't want to hear about, liability and risk and 3% and, it's their fault in Lansing. Collectively, it's a problem.
Well, Mike, to a certain extent, I would almost disagree with you as far as bringing the politicians on.
Okay.
Because if they truly want to serve the people, whether they're currently in elected office right now, or they're all up for re-election in 2018, they're the only ones that can make the change. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can do all these shows we want. We can inform people as much as we want. We can get people all upset about it, and everybody can tell their common story as to how much more expensive we're paying for car insurance. The point of the matter is, who can make the change? Who can actually change the law? Who can make us no longer a no-fault auto state? Who can get rid of MCCA or have an audit of it to manage it properly? Who can talk about getting rid of the credit scoring that's going on and gouging people with good credit and people with bad credit? It's all going to need to be done by new regulations, new reforms that we have to get passed in the House, get passed in the Senate, and force Governor Snyder to sign it.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yep.
Give me 2 names, one from the Democrat, one from the Republican, that we can bring on the screen and have a civil, constructive, productive conversation. Who would you recommend?
I would recommend the Speaker of the House, Tom Leonard, because he does have an insurance background and knows this subject very well. Okay. From the Democrat side, I would reach out to State Representative Scott Dianda from the 110th District. He represents very poor people in his 7 counties. If you look at the median income for the 110th House District, you'll see how low their income is up there. They're fighting double electricity rates than what we're paying below the bridge.
That's all up in the Keweenaw, isn't it? Or
yes.
Up in the UP, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. He's the most western bill, 7 counties that go right up to Wisconsin.
Okay.
He runs as a Democrat to get elected, but he's a bigger, stronger fiscal conservative hawk than some Republicans in Lansing.
And what's his full name again?
Scott Dianda.
He's not on Facebook. I looked for him.
Yeah, he is. You just got to hunt for him. He's kind of hard to find, but he's there. Well, and the other person that I would highly recommend, who I believe somebody who is serious about doing this, would be the Senate Majority Leader Arlen Meekhoff. And have him on your show and see if he'd be willing to come on, because it's going to take bipartisan as well as by House cooperation, both in the House and the Senate, to get this bill passed in the House, in the Senate, and sent to Governor Snyder. I hope with a high enough vote total that we could override a governor veto. Okay? Because if you can get enough votes in the House and the Senate, it doesn't even require Snyder's signature. This should be every single member of the House 109 members they have now, and the 38 state senators. This should pass unanimously in both the House and Senate, in my opinion.
Great.
Should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on an hour. And
Yes, sir.
we start wrapping it up. We have our calls to action. So I want to say thank you. First and foremost, thank you for joining.
And
Thank
Randy,
you. Yep,
Randy,
thank
why
you
don't
for
you
having
give
me.
a little plug to your Defending Fathers show that you do on the radio?
Well, I appreciate that, Bill. Brian Summerfield, Trucker Randy, we are your Defending Fathers. We're on 9 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday. And you can listen to us online. Go to patriotvoice.net.
Mhm.
That's all one word, patriotvoice.net. And we have a stream button there. Or you can use the TuneIn app on your cell phones and download the TuneIn app and then search for our call letters, WYPV. We're your Patriot Voice. And
Right.
the nice thing about TuneIn is if you get a phone call, it pauses our show, and you take your call. When you hang up, it picks up right where you left off. So
Right, and if people don't have the internet handy, you are also on broadcast radio too.
yes, we are 94.5 FM. We run from Gaylord all the way to Sault Ste. Marie,
Mhm.
and WHAK 960 AM over in the Alpena, Rogers City area as well.
Okay.
So-
When is
He's-
the Trucker Randy Facebook Live show coming?
We're working on that technology, and actually we're talking to Genesis Communications about syndicating our show so that you can get local radio stations downstate to start picking our show up as well. And we
Mhm.
hope to be on about 25 to 30 stations here within the next year.
Okay. It's a good
So-
show too.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, guys. You have a good night.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.